They said the sky tore open like a wound in the fabric of time. The chronicles do not agree on the hour. Some say twilight, others swear it was midday when the sun dimmed and silence fell over the battlefield. Warriors froze mid-charge, their cries strangled by awe. Then came the light, not fire, not lightning, but something neither man nor nature had ever known. It poured from the heavens in a blinding column, turning sand to glass and shadows to ghosts. One scribe wrote of chariots of fire, another of luminous beings, neither mortal nor divine. They emerged from the radiance like walking suns, their movements deliberate, their presence electric. Men dropped their weapons and fell to their knees, mistaking terror for worship. The air itself seemed alive, humming with unseen power. When the light withdrew, it left behind a silence too heavy to break. Centuries later, historians dismissed the tale as poetic exaggeration, a myth born of fear and ignorance. But across continents, separated by oceans and epochs, other civilizations recorded the same thing. Beings descending from the sky, bearing symbols of fire and light. From the sands of Mesopotamia to the cliffs of Peru, from hieroglyphs to cave walls, the message repeats. The same story written in different tongues. We call them gods, angels, or messengers. Yet the question lingers like smoke over an extinguished fire. What if they were visitors, not deities? What if the divine visitation remembered by our ancestors was humanity's first contact with something beyond this world? Perhaps the ancients weren't dreaming after all. Perhaps they were trying, with the language they had, to describe something that defied words, an encounter so profound that even millennia later we can still feel its echo in every myth, every symbol, every question that begins with what if. Long before ink met parchment, stories were carved in stone. Across deserts, jungles, and frozen plains, humanity left behind silent witnesses. Petroglyphs, murals, and monoliths that whisper the same impossible tale. Figures with elongated heads and radiant halos descend from the sky. Spirals and stars hover above them, etched by hands that trembled with reverence or fear. These aren't scattered coincidences, they are a pattern that spans the world. In the cradle of civilization, the Sumerians spoke of gods who descended from the heavens to teach mankind the order of the stars. Thousands of miles away, the Mayans painted gods wrapped in light, steering winged vessels across their temple ceilings. The ancient Dogon people of Africa, untouched by modern science, mapped the orbit of Sirius B, a star invisible to the naked eye, claiming the knowledge was a gift from skyborn teachers called the Nomo. Different continents, different eras, yet the same image repeats. Light from above, knowledge from beyond. Archaeologists call it parallel myth-making, cultures interpreting celestial phenomena in similar ways. But the carvings tell a subtler story. The postures, the objects, the gestures, they are not metaphors. They are memories translated into art. Every line cut into stone feels like a desperate attempt to preserve an encounter that shattered understanding itself. Some show hands reaching upward, others depict beings extending theirs downward, as if bridging two worlds for the briefest moment. Between them lies the eternal human question. Who reached first? Did we invent the gods to explain what we saw, or did what we saw invent us? The camera of history blinks and we're left with fragments. A temple wall in Egypt, a rock face in Australia, a star map in Mali. Together they form a constellation of evidence that defies coincidence. The narrator's voice lowers to a whisper. Different lands, different tongues, the same story. And perhaps the oldest story ever told wasn't written by humans at all. In the dust of ancient Mesopotamia, beneath crumbling ziggurats and forgotten temples, lies the first chapter of civilization. And perhaps the first record of contact. The Sumerians called them the Anunnaki, those who from the heavens came to earth. According to their tablets, these beings did not simply rule, they taught. They brought agriculture, mathematics, architecture, and the laws that would anchor the birth of society itself. Humanity did not stumble into civilization. It was led there. Clay tablets etched more than 5,000 years ago describe in startling detail the relationship between these celestial visitors and the people they guided. The gods were not ethereal spirits, but tangible presences, luminous, powerful, commanding. They walked among men, ruled in cities, and left behind blueprints for governance and technology that would shape millennia of progress. In the epic of creation, the heavens are not the realm of dreams, but of movement, vessels descending from the stars, bringing tools of light and fire that does not burn. Modern historians call it myth. Yet myth is rarely born from nothing. What if these deities were not divine abstractions but advanced beings, their power mistaken for godhood by early eyes? To a shepherd gazing skyward in 3000 BCE, even a glimmer of machinery would appear as magic. To a scribe, their voices of thunder and gifts of knowledge would become holy scripture. The hierarchies of gods and men then might not have been spiritual at all, but technological. A civilization of beings operating at a level of science that early humanity could only describe in the language of reverence. The narrator's voice slows, almost reflective. We built our faith on what we could not explain. But what if our gods were never supernatural, just superhuman? The Anunnaki may have left long ago, but their imprint remains in law, in numbers, in architecture. The very structure of civilization may still echo the design of those who first walked among us and then vanished into the stars. Centuries after the Sumerians vanished into history, their echoes resurfaced in scripture. The language had changed, but the imagery remained the same. Lights descending from the heavens, voices thundering from clouds, and mortals trembling before radiant beings. In the book of Ezekiel, a prophet sees a wheel within a wheel, shining like molten metal, rimmed with eyes, moving in perfect synchronization. He describes a storm cloud split by fire and creatures that gleam like polished bronze. To theologians, it is divine vision. To modern eyes, it sounds eerily like machinery. Then there is Elijah, lifted to the sky by a chariot of fire. The text insists he did not die, he was taken. The same verb appears in countless myths across the world, men taken by the gods, disappearing into light. When Moses descends Mount Sinai, his face glows with a brilliance so intense that his followers cannot look upon him. Ancient texts call it divine radiance. Today, we might call it radiation. These parallels are not isolated. The more one reads, the more the pattern repeats. An ancient language describing modern physics with words that did not yet exist. Wheels of fire, clouds that roar, lights that speak, all retold as miracles. The faithful see revelation, skeptics see misunderstanding. But between faith and reason lies a question that refuses to die. If these are metaphors, why do they describe the same mechanics? Perhaps religion began as humanity's earliest attempt to translate contact into meaning, to turn technology into theology, awe into worship. Every altar, every hymn might be a monument to an encounter we could not comprehend. The narrator's voice fades to a whisper, lingering on the edge of doubt and wonder. And if that's true, our gods may still be watching. In the endless silence of the Egyptian desert, the pyramids stand like equations carved into stone, precise, deliberate, and utterly unyielding to time. Even today, no structure rivals their mystery. Each block weighs tons, each alignment defies chance. The Great Pyramid's sides point almost perfectly to true north. an accuracy modern engineers struggle to achieve without digital instruments. Yet more than 4,000 years ago, someone built this with copper tools and muscle, or so we are told. What baffles archaeologists isn't only the how, but the speed. Egyptian civilization appeared almost fully formed, as if knowledge descended, not evolved. Architecture, astronomy, mathematics, one all advanced beyond their supposed era. The pyramids mirror Orion's belt with uncanny precision, their placement echoing the heavens in stone. As above, so below, and an idea so sophisticated it implies an understanding of the cosmos far beyond naked eye observation. Ancient texts credit the knowledge to the gods, beings who came from the stars of Osiris, who taught men to measure the heavens. Some scholars dismiss it as mythology, yet myth in every culture is often where memory hides. The hieroglyphs speak of skyboats, radiant visitors, and divine architects guiding the hands of men. Was this poetry or documentation? Even the materials whisper of secrets. Granite shaped with surgical precision, joints so tight a blade cannot pass between them. Modern experiments with lasers and drills struggle to replicate the same perfection. What tools then did they wield, and where did they come from? The narrator's tone deepens, caught between awe and unease. Either the ancients possessed forgotten genius, or they had help. And as the desert wind sighs through corridors of stone, one can almost imagine the echo of distant voices. Builders who gazed at the stars not for worship, but in remembrance of where their teachers came from. Beneath the immovable weight of the Great Pyramid, something stirs, not in motion but in mystery. Recent radar scans have revealed vast voids sealed within the heart of the monument, chambers untouched for over 4 millennia. Scientists speak of anomalies and air pockets, but the data suggests deliberate design. Spaces concealed with mathematical precision, as if their builders intended for them never to be found. Or not yet. Egyptologists debate their purpose. Were they structural, symbolic, or something else entirely? Some claim these hidden corridors were meant to guard royal relics or spiritual texts. Others whisper that they were vaults, repositories of a knowledge humanity was never meant to inherit. The ancients themselves spoke of the House of Eternity, where the gods stored the secrets of the stars. And if the Great Pyramid was more than a tomb, could it be the vessel that safeguarded that celestial legacy? The walls of Egypt's temples teem with carvings of skyboats, elongated crafts gliding across the heavens carrying luminous beings crowned with serpents of light. To the ancients, these were divine journeys. To modern eyes, they look hauntingly mechanical. The gods, the texts say, descended from the belt of Osiris and returned when their work was done. The alignment between Orion's belt and the pyramid's shafts suddenly feels less symbolic and more like a map home. As the narrator's voice slows, the tone tightens, the air thick with ancient tension. What lies behind those sealed doors? Gold and relics, or something older than both history and myth? The radar images glow on dark screens like ghostly fingerprints pressed into stone by hands not entirely human. If these halls were ever opened, the narrator whispers, what story would they tell us? Deep in the arid cliffs of Mali, far from the reach of modern civilization, lives the Dogon, a people whose traditions reach further than history itself. For centuries they have spoken of a star, a small, dense companion to Sirius, the brightest light in our sky. They call it Po-Tolo, the seed star, the heaviest thing in existence. They describe its orbit, its color, even its immense weight. Yet Sirius B, as we know it today, is invisible to the naked eye, a white dwarf discovered only with the aid of telescopes in the 20th century. How could an isolated tribe possess such knowledge? Anthropologists call it coincidence or misinterpretation, but the Dogon disagree. Their elders tell of the Nomo, amphibious beings who came down from the sky in a vessel that spun and roared like fire. The Nomo, they say, taught their ancestors the mysteries of the heavens, agriculture, and time itself. They came not as gods, but as teachers, luminous, fluid, neither man nor fish. When their task was complete, they returned to the waters of the stars, promising to come again when the world was ready. The Dogon preserved these accounts through ritual and song, never altering the details, never forgetting. They even celebrate the cycle of Sirius every 50 years with uncanny precision. To them, it is not faith, it is memory. Our ancestors did not worship the stars, one elder once said. They remembered them. Western science, uncomfortable with the impossible, often dismisses the Dogon story as cultural contamination, the influence of an outsider or missionary. But no record of such transmission exists. The mystery remains suspended between two explanations. Either knowledge crossed oceans and millennia unseen, or it was given from above, a gift that outlived its givers. And as night falls over Mali, the Dogon still gather to watch the same sky, not in wonder but in recognition. For the modern astronomer, the Dogon puzzle is both fascinating and infuriating. How could a people untouched by modern instruments know the precise characteristics of a star invisible to human sight? How did they describe its orbit, its density, its cycle, centuries before the telescope was even imagined? In dimly lit labs, scholars trace data points on glowing screens, trying to reconcile what the Dogon carved into memory with what science has only recently confirmed. The silence between fact and folklore grows heavier with each calculation. Some claim it's coincidence, that the Dogon simply guessed and happened to be right. Others argue that European explorers might have shared astronomical knowledge centuries earlier. But the Dogon's oral traditions predate those encounters by hundreds, perhaps thousands of years. Their ceremonies track Sirius B's orbit with mathematical fidelity, a 50-year cycle precisely matching modern measurements. It's too exact, too stubborn to dismiss. In interviews, anthropologists speak cautiously. "We can't prove they knew what they claimed," one says, his voice tight with uncertainty. "But we also can't explain how they could have known." Skepticism becomes a kind of faith of its own, a belief in impossibility. Because to admit that the Dogon were right is to open the door to something far older, far stranger than science is comfortable naming. The narrator's tone softens, pulling us into the tension between logic and legacy. Is this coincidence? Lost science? Or the residue of an ancient visitation? The question lingers in the air like dust in sunlight. If knowledge can survive untouched for millennia, what else might have endured? Buried beneath myth, encoded in ritual, waiting to be recognized again. The camera of imagination pans westward across the oceans, following invisible lines of connection carved into the sky. And then the voice fades to a whisper heavy with foreboding. The same symbols began appearing thousands of miles away. In the jungles of Mesoamerica, where vines choke the bones of empires, the stones still speak. The Maya and Aztecs recorded their history not in books, but in symbols of fire and wings, gods who came from the sky bringing knowledge of time, astronomy, and creation itself. Among them was Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent, a being of light who descended from the heavens and taught humanity the arts of civilization. When his mission was done, he rose again, vowing to return. Temple carvings show figures in elaborate helmets, adorned with tubes and patterns that look eerily like breathing apparatus. Ancient murals depict circular craft streaking across the sky, surrounded by radiant halos of light. To the priests, they were celestial chariots. To modern eyes, they look unsettlingly familiar. Disks, flames, vapor trails, propulsion. The line between myth and eyewitness account begins to blur. The Aztecs told of the god Tlaloc, who arrived in thunder and vanished in storms. The Olmecs carved colossal heads with distinctly non-native features, eyes deep-set, lips full, skulls rounded and smooth. Even today, their presence feels alien, not just in form but in purpose, as if they were portraits of visitors remembered, not imagined. Quetzalcoatl's legend ends not with death but with departure. He promises to return from where the morning star rises, a phrase that resonates with cosmic undertones. To the faithful, it meant Venus. To others, it was a direction, a coordinate. When the Spanish conquistadors arrived, many believed the prophecy fulfilled. They mistook men from across the sea for gods from the stars. The narrator's tone deepens, heavy with the irony of history. The gods didn't just descend, they promised to return. And somewhere between prophecy and memory lies the unsettling possibility that we're still waiting for them. Along the windswept coast of Peru, archaeologists unearthed hundreds of skulls, elongated, smooth, almost inhuman. Known as the Paracas skulls, they stretch the limits of anatomy. Some are 25% larger than normal human craniums, with cranial volume too great to result from natural deformation. Scientists explain some away as head binding, a cultural practice found across the world. But these skulls tell another story. Their structure isn't compressed, it's grown that way. The sutures, the joints where bone plates fuse, are different, as if shaped by a blueprint alien to human evolution. The people who buried them adorned the remains with red hair, gold, and embroidered symbols of the heavens. Genetic testing later revealed something even stranger. Mitochondrial DNA unlike anything in known human lineages. Not Neanderthal, not modern, something other. The results remain disputed, quietly dismissed by official circles, yet impossible to unsee. Nearby, in temples and burial chambers, Mayan and Nazca murals depict elongated-headed beings standing beside stars, serpents, and skyships. Under ultraviolet light, hidden constellations emerge, invisible to the naked eye for centuries. They map not just our sky, but systems beyond it, as if the artists were guided by hands that remembered a different home. Could these skulls be remnants of an ancient experiment, a merging of two worlds, human and not? Or are they the relics of visitors who once walked among us, leaving behind children who carried their image in bone? The question gnaws at the boundary between science and heresy. The narrator's voice fades into the hush of the desert wind. Evolution doesn't stretch bone like this, unless something or someone intended it to. And in the half-light of the Andean dusk, those hollow eyes seem to gaze upward still, toward the stars that might remember them. For centuries behind the marble corridors of the Vatican lies a silence thicker than stone. Beneath its foundations stretch miles of archives, a labyrinth of manuscripts, sealed letters, and forbidden chronicles that few have ever seen. Within these vaults, it's said, rest the oldest testimonies of celestial visitations and the evidence of truths too vast for faith to contain. Officially, they are records of theology and diplomacy. Unofficially, whispers speak of other things. Papal correspondences describing metal birds crossing the skies over Rome, or luminous apparitions that terrified witnesses mistook for angels. Among the dust of time, fragments of heretical cosmologies hint that early Christianity grappled not only with the heavens of spirit, but perhaps with the heavens of space. Declassified Vatican documents from the Renaissance mention scholars who mapped stars newly visible after divine fires passed overhead. In one lost letter, a monk confesses to seeing a host of shining discs near the horizon, their glow neither flame nor sun. The church never condemned him. It simply filed his confession away, preserved but never discussed. Perhaps that was the pattern all along. The church did not destroy what it could not explain. It kept it. It studied it. It locked it away, safeguarding humanity from questions that could unmake belief. For centuries, the Vatican preserved mysteries under the guise of faith, not to suppress them, but to wait until the world was ready to understand. The narrator's voice softens, almost reverent. For centuries, the church preserved what it could not explain. And somewhere in a chamber no map reveals, the answers may still sleep. Ink fading, parchment crumbling, but truth untouched. In 1933, an Italian official named Alberto Tulli claimed to have discovered an ancient Egyptian papyrus describing something extraordinary. Discs of fire that hovered over the pharaoh's army in the 18th dynasty. The translation, allegedly copied from the original housed in the Cairo Museum, reads like an eyewitness account. Soldiers watched as luminous circles crossed the desert sky. The pharaoh ordered incense burned and offerings made, for the gods of the sky had returned. Skeptics dismissed the Tulli papyrus as legend. The original vanished before it could be verified, conveniently missing, existing now only in handwritten copies and photographs of questionable origin. Yet the details refuse to fade. The description matches modern accounts: circular craft emitting light, moving without sound, causing animals to panic. The scribe writes of a rain of fishes following the event, a strange meteorological phenomenon still reported after modern UFO encounters. Even stranger is the trail it left behind. After Tulli's death, Vatican officials reportedly requested his estate's Egyptian papers for archiving. Why would the church, custodian of spiritual records, want an unverified UFO account? The question lingers like incense in an empty temple. Was the papyrus a forgery, or a fragment of something the ancients truly saw? Its language mirrors other ancient accounts, from Ezekiel's fiery wheel to the Mayan skyships, as if the same event had been witnessed by different worlds. The narrator's tone narrows to a whisper, the cadence tightening with unease. If this was fiction, why did the Vatican request it back? And in that unanswerable question, the desert grows silent again. The papyrus gone, the witnesses dust, yet the story refusing to die. Somewhere beneath the vaulted catacombs of faith, perhaps it still lies, waiting for the courage of a world willing to read it. In the summer of 1947, the sky over Roswell, New Mexico split open with a flash of light, and the world below would never look at the heavens the same way again. Newspapers screamed of a flying disc recovered by the U.S. Army. Witnesses described metallic debris that shimmered like liquid mercury, unburned by impact, unbroken by logic. Within hours, the story was buried under an official correction. A weather balloon, nothing more. But once seen, truth has a way of echoing, and Roswell's echo reached back through millennia. Because this wasn't the first time something had fallen from the sky. The ancients spoke of it too. Shields of fire over Rome, discs of light over Egypt, chariots of flame witnessed by terrified armies. Different eras, same description. What we call UFOs, they called gods. The shapes, the silence, the sudden descent, all identical, separated only by time and vocabulary. Eyewitnesses from Roswell described smooth, seamless craft. No rivets, no sound, moving against the wind. Their accounts mirror ancient carvings of circular vessels hovering above pyramids and temples. It's as though the same visitors have been tracing the same flight path for centuries, returning to watch, to measure, perhaps to remind. Government archives classify Roswell as mythology now, a product of Cold War paranoia. But buried beneath the denials lies the rhythm of recurrence, a pulse older than memory. The narrator's tone slows, grave and reflective. What fell in 1947 wasn't just debris, it was déjà vu. Perhaps Roswell wasn't an isolated event, but the latest chapter in an ongoing conversation, one written in fire, metal, and silence. And if history repeats itself, then maybe those angels, those gods, those wheels of light were never gone. They were just waiting for the sky to open again. Across thousands of years, the pattern emerges, a cosmic rhythm hidden in plain sight. Ancient sightings in Babylon, medieval sky battles over Nuremberg, 19th century airships over America, then Roswell, Phoenix, Rendlesham, Tic-Tac. Each wave separated by centuries, each appearing at moments of human transition, as if someone were checking in. Imagine the graph, spikes of sightings rising like pulses in history's heartbeat. 1561, 1897, 1947, 1997, 2019. Each era records objects of light behaving beyond known physics. Ancient monks called them portents. Modern pilots call them threats. The technology changes, but the phenomenon does not. Researchers now suspect a cycle, a return pattern. Every few hundred years, the watchers reappear, not to conquer, but to observe, to measure the experiment they began. It's as if Earth itself is part of a long-running project, and we are the variables. Skeptics reduce it to human psychology, mass hysteria repeated through generations. Yet coincidences multiply until disbelief sounds less scientific than faith. The records align too neatly, as though an unseen hand resets the stage, whispering across centuries, "We are still here." The narrator describes this invisible map with slow, cinematic gravity. Civilizations rise, look up, record what they see, and vanish. Only the sky remains constant. The same theater, the same audience. The pattern is undeniable. The only question is purpose. Are we being watched, guided, or merely remembered? Each encounter feels less like a visitation and more like maintenance, an ancient dialogue, replaying on a schedule we've only begun to chart. The narrator's voice fades to a hush. Every few hundred years, the watchers return. And as the stars drift over the ruins of every civilization that ever looked upward, one truth endures: they've never stopped watching. We just stopped recognizing them. Some mysteries aren't written in stone. They're written in us. Every strand of human DNA carries a story older than civilization, older than language, older even than the memory of what we once were. Within that spiraling code lie questions no fossil can answer. Why did human intelligence surge so suddenly? Why did our ancestors, after millions of years of slow evolution, leap forward almost overnight, discovering fire, tools, and thought itself? Science calls it mutation, a random spark in nature's chaos. But randomness rarely moves with such purpose. Something accelerated us, rewrote us, made us capable of imagining gods and building pyramids to reach them. Geneticists call parts of our DNA junk, sequences with no known function. But what if that junk is simply misunderstood, like a locked section of an ancient library written in a language we no longer speak? Mitochondrial studies reveal another puzzle, a gap, a missing chapter in our maternal lineage roughly 200,000 years ago. It's as if an unknown influence reset the species, upgrading the blueprint, then vanished without a trace. Myths from every corner of the world remember a similar event. The moment when the gods shaped man from clay or breathed life into dust. Perhaps those weren't metaphors for creation, but memories of modification. The narrator's voice steadies, caught between awe and unease. Science calls it mutation. Myths call it intervention. If that's true, evolution wasn't an accident, it was a project. Humanity wasn't born in the wild, but engineered in the dark, built to look upward, to wonder, to remember. Maybe our creators didn't leave us. Maybe they live within us, encoded in every cell, a signature of hands we've never seen but whose design we carry still. Across cultures, across time, the same forbidden story repeats. Gods descending from the heavens to mate with mortals. In Sumerian epics, they were the Anunnaki, whose unions birthed demigods and kings. In the Bible, they were the Nephilim, the mighty men of old. In Greek myth, Zeus's bloodline flooded the earth with heroes part human, part divine. And in every case, those unions ended in disaster. Floods, plagues, cataclysms that erased the evidence but not the memory. What if these myths are not allegory but ancestry? Advanced beings capable of manipulating genetics might have sought to blend with the species they engineered, creating hybrids to bridge their world and ours. Ancient texts describe these offspring as giants, shining ones, or beings of two natures. Today, genetic anomalies persist. Rare individuals with inexplicable resistances, heightened perception, or mutations science cannot categorize. The fingerprints of something unnatural linger, faint but undeniable. Ancient temples show scenes of beings with elongated skulls and luminous auras touching the foreheads of humans, a gesture both intimate and clinical. It's as though our ancestors witnessed the fusion of species and tried to capture it in stone before forgetting what it meant. Perhaps the gods weren't creating us in their image but altering their own, ensuring a piece of themselves would survive through us. The narrator's tone drops to a whisper, the thought almost too heavy to voice. Maybe we aren't their creation, just their continuation. And if that's true, the question is no longer who made us, but when they plan to return and see what their experiment has become. Truth has never been erased, only edited. Throughout history, every institution of power has waged quiet wars over what humanity is allowed to believe. Governments bury it under secrecy. Religions cloak it in faith. Academia walls it off with skepticism. Yet behind all their contradictions lies one shared motive: control. Because to control what people believe is to control how they see themselves. When strange lights appeared over Washington in 1952, radar confirmed what pilots saw with their own eyes. The next day, officials called it temperature inversion. When witnesses in Rendlesham Forest described a craft landing near a military base, they were told it was a lighthouse. When leaked photos surfaced from Roswell, they became weather balloons again. Each time, the story followed the same choreography: denial, ridicule, forget. Freedom of Information Acts have since revealed what wasn't meant to surface: thousands of classified pages, redacted names, blacked out truths. From Project Blue Book to modern defense programs, patterns emerge. Serious investigations disguised as jokes. UFOs became punchlines not by accident but by design. The narrator's voice tightens with gravity. The easiest way to hide truth is to make it sound insane. Even academia joined the performance, dismissing anything that threatened the framework of human exceptionalism. Theologians reframed heavenly visitors as metaphor, while scientists avoided the topic altogether, fearing for reputations built on certainty. In the end, ridicule became the most effective weapon, a firewall against wonder. But beneath that wall, the questions never stopped humming. Who decides what counts as knowledge? Who benefits from keeping our eyes fixed downward while something watches from above? The war for truth was never fought in the sky. It was fought in the mind. And in that quiet battlefield, humanity may have already surrendered. What if tomorrow the truth was revealed? If every government, every archive, every witness finally agreed, we were never alone, would it unite us or break us? The question has haunted philosophers, priests, and physicists alike. Because knowledge isn't free, it comes with consequence, to belief, to identity, to everything we call human. Imagine a civilization built on certainty suddenly forced to face its irrelevance. Religions would tremble, science would fracture, and history would unravel. The myths we thought were dead would rise again, whispering, "We told you so." Humanity might not celebrate disclosure, it might collapse beneath it. Our fear of the unknown has always been our oldest inheritance. We crave answers but recoil when they stare back. Perhaps that's why the truth remains hidden, not because they won't tell us, but because we're not ready to hear it. Knowledge demands maturity, and history suggests we're still learning to walk without turning revelation into war. The narrator's tone softens, almost sorrowful. If we learned that we were never alone, would our civilization survive the truth? In the end, maybe the greatest cover-up isn't orchestrated by governments or gods, but by us, the collective decision to remain blind, to keep the door closed because we fear what light might spill through. And as the stars burn silently above, the question endures. Not whether they exist, but whether we can bear to exist knowing they do. Night falls over the ruins of history. The last light of the sun fades across broken temples and silent ziggurats, and the sky above, vast, cold, eternal, seems to hum with memory. Every civilization that ever looked upward left something behind. A monument, a myth, a question carved into stone. From the pyramids to the Andes, from Sumer to Sirius, their gaze was always the same. Not of worship, but of remembrance. We build telescopes now where they once built temples, chasing the same elusive answer. Who is out there? Yet the deeper we peer into the cosmos, the more it begins to resemble ourselves. Galaxies swirl like fingerprints. Cosmic radiation echoes the pulse of our own neurons. It's as if the universe has been holding up a mirror all along, waiting for us to realize that first contact may never have been an event, but an awakening. Perhaps the gods of old were not visitors, but reflections. Glimpses of what we could become when we outgrow the fear of our own potential. Or perhaps they were real, and their silence now is deliberate, a test of what we've done with the knowledge they left behind. The narrator's tone softens, almost reverent. We search the heavens for answers, but maybe the stars are only mirrors. And in that mirror, the cosmos stares back, ancient, patient, remembering. The silence between worlds is not empty after all. It is the pause before understanding, the breath before the next word in a conversation that never truly ended. The constellations still trace the same lines they did when the first humans looked skyward. Orion still rises over Giza. Sirius still burns above Mali. Across millennia, the alignment holds. Temples, pyramids, and megaliths perfectly positioned as if waiting for something to come back into focus. Maybe that was the plan all along. Not monuments to the past, but markers for the future. Every prophecy, every legend ends with a promise. They will return. From Quetzalcoatl's vow to descend again with the morning star, to Enoch's vision of the watchers who sleep among the stars, humanity has always felt the pull of reunion. We sense it in dreams, in myths, in the unspoken certainty that our story isn't finished. If they came once, they can come again. Maybe they already have, not in ships of metal and fire, but in ideas, in intuition, in the strange evolution of our consciousness. Perhaps the true contact happens not across galaxies, but within us when we finally remember what we were made to forget. The camera of imagination drifts upward, Temples dissolving into stars, stars aligning into the geometry of memory. The universe feels suddenly intimate, like a home rediscovered after lifetimes of wandering. The narrator's voice fades to a whisper, weightless as starlight. Perhaps they never left. They just stopped needing to be seen. And with that, the cosmos exhales, infinite, silent, watching. The story doesn't end. It only turns its gaze back to us,